What is up, adventurers, and welcome to a brand new ShawnSetGO video. Today we're going to be talking about some of the content concerns before we get into the official content releases, where we start getting those big content releases until the raid's fully released and we start getting some of the seasons started. So with that being said, we wanted to talk about some of the concerns and some of the things that came up on the Reddit page, and also just discussing these things that have kind of started since the beginning of War Within, but also some things that are unique to now Undermine as well. So like before, let's talk about the positives and the negatives, not to be too harsh, but of course at least impart some sort of opinions. And of course, if you're liking these type of videos, please do give them a like, subscribe to the page while you're at it. We are on the road to 1,500 subscribers, so your support is greatly appreciated. So let's talk about it a little bit. The first thing that it's talking about is, it says, what the duck is the point in Valor Stones? Why do these things exist? Crest already cap how quickly you can upgrade items. Nothing sucks more than wanting to make my guy strong, but needing to do 15 world quests to get 27 Valor Stones each to do it. I would say the main thing about it, it seems, is Crest is obviously, it's locked behind content difficulty. Valor Stones prevents you from upgrading too often, like too quickly. So that cap prevents you from upgrading too much gear at once. But as a concept, it seems like why it's put forth is just a way to make it to where you can upgrade gear that you receive, say, throughout the week. But so often you're not receiving gear so consistently that you can experiment with and upgrade. Typically, you're going to bank it for your BIS, or you're going to wait for your vault to upgrade something. If it's not in the proper tier, it's not worth doing. And of course, it's going to have its maximum limits. I would say the cutoff for most people is hero for the most part. So it existing is just a time gating thing, simply put. And it's obvious why they do it this way, but it's frustrating because so often you're sitting on maximum and you receive the mail saying that you win over max, so it doesn't matter anymore. So a lot of people have gone to preserving certain quests just so they can make sure they don't hit cap nearly as often. It creates this frustrating cycle where it's just like one filter is enough, and this is just another layer of time gating as well as difficulty gating. So I don't necessarily side with anybody who thinks that it's an okay method to, like, well, you always have them, so it's always fine. Like then why does it exist? It doesn't seem like a really an important thing. I'm sitting on a bunch of dead quests waiting to turn in now simply because I'm capped at 2,000. I can't spend them. I generally have no idea why Blizzard is doing these things. Why do they exist? What's the purpose do they serve? As this person says, you can upgrade random drops that don't require quests or crests. True, but then that's just a waste of those stones that could have been banked for you whenever you get an upgrade or abyss. This person says, and get what exactly? Exactly. Despite the fact that they've acknowledged it, the devs can't seem to help themselves when it comes to adding 400 currencies every expansion cycle. As much as I'm loving the War Within, yeah, I think that the amount of currencies is just irritating. It doesn't make the game worthwhile or fun doing. The only time I think alternate currencies work is like with certain reputations, like say if they have a different token system to spend in their particular vendor, but that's not the case. For the most part, it's universally the same currency. It's just you have to earn different reputations to spend that currency. And so what ends up happening a lot is you either reach cap or you get to a point where it's like, well, I have no other way of earning these crests reasonably, and you can't get enough to get them, or you end up spending so much time farming for like a pittance of a certain amount of crests that you're working for. So it just doesn't seem like it works fairly in a sort of way. Facts, Valor Stones should be warband at least, but in my opinion, we should only need crest for upgrades. Yeah, and that only makes sense to me. I think the only way that I would accept Valor Stones is if Valor Stones was like the step before crests, and you didn't need it for the higher level gear, like it was for that low level gear, and doing those kind of things. Also, I was expecting, or I'm hoping expecting more from the upgrade system besides just stat upgrades. I'm hoping that as time goes on, they'll realize that it would be much more reasonable to have people spend not just crest for upgrades, but have Valor Stones be kind of like that thing you can tinker your gear, and kind of maybe have something that can maybe reroll stats, or have something where you can include interesting effects in some sort of way. I don't know, but something else besides what it's currently doing, because to me, just the upgraded stats is so boring. I'd rather get a new piece of gear that's interesting than just see another blue that I'm just like, yeah, it's blue, so no, or it's the wrong tier, so no. So it's not hero, so nope. So it just seems like you're just throwing more loot at us, some more loot that I'm not going to look at, and at most it's going to be transmog. They exist to make playing any part of the game feel rewarding so that you could get something useful no matter what type of content you do, and they have a small cap because they don't want to encourage hoarding them. They want you to use them to upgrade gear quickly rather than feeling like you have to hoard them and wait for BIS drops. I understand what they're saying, but you still need crests, so it's totally pointless. So you have to hoard them because you want to hoard them for BIS. If you spend them too early, you're not going to have the crest you need to upgrade your BIS when it comes time. So you have to hoard them. It's counterintuitive to what you're supposed to do. There's not enough freedom in the current system to just upgrade gear to fill slots, because you're just better off waiting and holding on to what you have so you can upgrade your BIS fully instead of upgrading it partially. There's not enough crests in the current system in the way it works. Now with crest changes, maybe that could change with season 2, but I just don't see that being the case. So let's move on to the next one. This one talks about rare mobs. It's rare mobs and Undermine giving 20 reputation with a daily reset instead of 150 with a weekly reset, like in 11.0, feels pretty bad. They also die way too fast. A pretty bad iteration of rare mobs all in all. I don't really feel like I'm going out of my way to kill these meager 20 reputation and -1 pack space from all their car parts I already have. Yeah, I'm getting duplicates and triplicates and stuff, and I still don't have all the parts to build anything. It's just frustrating, especially since they will probably already be dead before I get there. Yeah, if you're not standing on the spawn when it happens, you're not going to get there in time. The rare spawns are a joke and are meaningless. I've said this for a long time, that rare spawns have no meaning in the game other than to fill a checkbox. The whole purpose of rare spawns is that they came up super rare and they had items that you couldn't get otherwise. So rare spawns have lost all purpose to me, and the fact that we're not even getting good value, not even from their loot, but also not even from their reputation, is ridiculous. I don't see why these things exist. Often I'll see these areas and quests that require 5 players, or rare spawns that pop up and I'm like, oh cool, this is like little mini world bosses. Nope, it's just random mobs that are no stronger. They just have bigger health pools than everything else. So to me, it's just kind of a super big joke on everybody, and I really wish they would make these things more challenging or more rewarding, one of the two. If you're going to make them a joke and keep making them a joke, then honestly, remove them. I'd rather them not be there, spend more time other places than having these things exist. It just feels like something to fill the worlds with a different type of NPC. And I know I'm kind of going hard on this, but it's just kind of ridiculous to me. Considering how irrelevant the renown rewards are this time, I'm not even bothering to speed farm it. I'll just do weeklies and get it maxed eventually. Yeah, I said this before a long time ago. The renown rewards are literally just rewards so you can do the quests quicker, so you can farm things faster. That to me is the worst idea for a renown track ever. The biggest thing that I thought was going to happen is I thought we were going to get high level gear in those tracks that actually had purpose and difference. That way you felt like you could do those things, or that you needed to do those things. Right now it just feels like it's all this filler. Look at all these things. I'm like, why do I need any of these? The moment I do a few delves, I'll have better gear than this, or if I do a few world quests, I'll have better than this. So it's like it doesn't feel like there's really any purpose, unless you're you like getting the companions and pets and mounts and etc. If you're in that track, you're probably happy with this. But to me, the renown track is just not giving rewards that actually feel rewarding. It just feels like we're farming to farm. Farming to farm. We're playing farming simulator at this point, with how many layers this has at this point. Simple tips for season 2. I wanted to mention this because there were a lot of really great hints in here, and they added some stuff in here for tanks and healers as well. It's a nice little infographic. I'll try to include this in the description. But one thing I kind of wanted to note, because I have mentioned this before, a lot of people say this all looks good and everything looks fine. I will say it's kind of frustrating the amount of times where it's like tank buster, tank buster, tank buster, tank buster, tank buster. Let's see. Let's see. Ooh, a couple we've gone through without. Tank buster. Tank buster, tank buster, tank buster, tank buster. So the amount of bosses here that have tank busters, I felt like we were promised that this would happen less. And it doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like it's happening, or if not on par with what we've expected before. So I'm not going to say it's the worst thing in the world. I've done Floodgate, and Floodgate seems at least fun. I don't necessarily like the first part of it as much as I do the second part, like where closer to the last boss. The inside looks really cool. The outside area just kind of looks like a big open area. It doesn't really seem very thematic, but the inside area does seem very, very cool. I like it a lot. So a lot of cool things there. I mean, additionally with, and then those who've done the delve so far, so Excavation Site 9, this to me just looks like Nurubar Palace with some other sort of decor mixed in. It still feels very much like a purple bug palace because of all the black blood. It just kind of, the colors are very samey, and maybe just a few different types of bugs. Otherwise, it's not really that different to me. I'm not a big fan of this one specifically, but Side Street Sluice with all the like the different gear and like the acid pools and the different variants of delves does feel good, does feel very thematic. I like it a lot. But this excavation site thing, I kind of wish they didn't do this. It doesn't feel very good to me, but a lot of people say they like it a lot. So I guess people are they're welcome to have their own opinion, but it just, to me, just doesn't look very new. It just seems like they copied a lot of stuff and kind of pasted it into the new expansion. So I'm not a big fan of it personally, but Side Street Sluice is actually really cool to me. So I do like some of them, just not a big fan of all of them. So, and then this last one here is a little bit more of a discussion. You know, you're welcome to impart your own thoughts about this, but this is for those of you trying to join in during this big content release, as well as those of you who are still playing. And it says, for those of you who played The War Within on release, are you still playing? I started playing the expansion on release and initially had a lot of fun. When I hit level cap, the Mythic Plus pipeline seemed daunting and killed my mood for the game. I didn't help that I had no desire to PvP the first time. I'm getting the itch to play again, but curious if anyone was in the same boat. I will say the Mythic Plus slump does exist. I will say as well, though, once you hit about the +9, +10 range, that slump does go away. People are a lot more chill. And things just go a lot more smooth. I think it weeds out most people who don't want to do mythics. It's just very hard to get past that slump. It's not like delves where the skill ceiling is sort of blocked. Like, you can be very good at delves and insanely good at pulling everything, but it's not going to matter so much more. Mythic Plus definitely has a higher skill ceiling, but I will say once you hit 10, the minimum bar that people perform at is much higher. So it does seem it does feel a lot smoother that way. So I will say that there is a light at the end of that tunnel for those of you who left because of that Mythic Plus slump. And then this one says, no one's seen one person said it's going to be a bad season. The raid looks great. They reduced tank busters in M+. I disagree. They limited the amount of cast in M+ and increased their time. I mean, I've done the delves, I've done the dungeon, and people do the same thing that was an issue before is an issue now. You interrupt a cast, they cast it immediately again. You can interrupt it 5 more times, they're going to cast it again and again and again and again. It gets so frustrating to where it becomes unfun. It doesn't feel like you're actually doing anything, you're just delaying the inevitable. I'm not a big fan of that. The Mythic Dungeon Pool is very bad, objectively speaking. We will see how it actually feels to actually play it. Beta testing feedback wasn't great on it either. I have multiple people telling me that pugging was an awful experience and that the dungeons are rough. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, pugging's one thing. That's a whole different thing in my opinion. What happens tomorrow, if you don't mind me asking? Season 2 start? Yep, yeah. So never really stop playing, just take breaks for a month or two. Yeah, I think it's natural for there to be a natural curve of people joining in and stop playing. Literally on the game right now, bro is so bored he started scrolling Reddit. That's, yeah, oh, oops. Let's see. I haven't seen a lot of newer players, I will say, jumping into delves. And I know they're newer because when I'm tanking, I'm on top of the DPS charts. So it kind of says something for sure. Taking a break right now, I frequently find myself in game with kind of nothing to do, or at least nothing I was interested in. Yeah, I think that you have to be okay with, you fill the vault up to the point you want. And then after that, you kind of just find something else to do, you know, whether that's resource gathering or crafting, transmog, completing achievements, something or other. But World of Warcraft is currently in a state, at least I believe, that they want you to basically spend as much or as little time as you're gonna as you want in the game. No matter what, you're gonna make progress. It's just the game is no longer like a game that you should invest 8 to 10 hours, you know, or anything like that anymore. It's just not, it's not what people are searching for or needing from the game anymore. They don't desire that. So I think that it's kind of been the natural course of things over time that the game would turn this way, because the game has kind of been more and more casual. I'm not saying that's entirely a bad thing, but I think that right now the game very much is, I don't want to say afraid to take risks, but it's kind of making content so accessible that nobody feels a desire to do, or like a push to do anything beyond maybe 1 or 2 major things. Most people just do delves, or just do world quests and crafting, or just do raiding. So I think that very often most players are kind of in the state that this Redditor is, that it's like, well, there's nothing to do, or at least nothing I want to do, which is kind of an unfortunate state, but I wouldn't say it's the end of all things. I think there's a lot of good that's going to be coming from season 2. I can expect that there's going to be a lot of players that will be more vocal. I mean, we've already seen from the PTR a lot more people being more vocal about their dislikes with Mythic Plus. My only fear, and I've talked about this before, is that the content schedule of WoW right now is that they are so on track with keeping to a certain dates and a certain schedule that there's not going to be much of going back and kind of fixing things or updating things, just kind of moving on to the next one and then hoping that this one hits better than the previous. So I'm hoping that there is some of that listening to feedback and less of just kind of chugging on without really addressing or listening to the community as well. So we'll see if that's the case in the coming weeks. But until next time, I hope you guys have a good content patch. Enjoy your Tuesday off. I'm most likely gonna have to be taking it off really and then playing it the next day, but enjoy your content patch, and may fortune ever favor your journey. That came out awful. Anyways, peace.